small faces and your great backgrounds. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Amy Dotson. I'm the director of the Northwest Film Center, and we're so happy to have you here for our third happy hour, where we've extended it out beyond our Oregon borders to our friends at the Northwest Film Forum, at FilmFort, TreeFort, and then a little bit down the way for BendFilm with Todd Looby as well. So just before we get into this, my co-host Tim Williams, who's with Oregon Film and is one of our film committee members as well, just want to go over a few housekeeping things. One is just happy hour rules. If you could each mute your mic unless you're talking, that would be fantastic. It just helps the crazy clutter and the buzzy noise in the background. If you have questions, and I'm sure there's lots, just type them in the group chat box and I'll pose them to the group in between questions. And, you know, we just want to introduce also why we're doing this. This is a mix of funders and filmmakers and artists and supporters of the Northwest Film Center, supporters of Northwest Film Forum, BendFilm, all these different places. And we think it's a good idea for everybody to come together and to listen to what's going on in this moment. We will be recording this and sharing it out, so just please be aware of this. And if you're called on to speak, I know a lot of you know each other, but maybe because now we're going wider, some of you might not, just be sure and state your name. And December Carson's also on the call with us. She's waving, she's in an awesome red hoodie, and she'll be overseeing the happy hour and has the ability to help mute and go after trolls. If anybody sees a troll, hop up, pipe up. But just thank you all for being here. And Tim, did you want to say anything before we introduce the speakers?
No, other than thank you very much. And I'm really excited that we've pushed out from the Oregon boundaries and gone up to Washington and Idaho with our guests today, as well as out to Bend. And I'm grateful and appreciative to the Northwest Film Center for putting this together and for our guests coming together, because I think this is going to be a really good conversation about films and programming and that whole thing within the world that you guys are all in at the moment, not just the Film Center, but everybody that's on this call. So thank you for that, and thank you for letting me be a part of it. If anybody has any specific questions for me, feel free to private chat me or even just ask, and I'm happy to pop back on. Otherwise, I'm going to be listening and learning.
Great, thanks, Tim. Just two more housekeeping things that I forgot. One is, I know that both Tim and I, and actually I saw some of your faces as well, we're both on regional calls and the national call today with the NEA that Sundance Institute is putting on. And I think, you know, we got a lot of great intel about all of those things. So we'll be adding in as we can to share that information. And as well, you might not see as many of our staff and our team members as normal. For those of you that are not Oregon-based or Portland-based, unfortunately, both the Northwest Film Center and the Portland Art Museum had to put 80% of our team on unpaid leave. They are still being paid through sick days and vacation days, and we are providing, for now, healthcare through the end of June with the full intention of bringing the team back. So just to be candid and open and aware, it's been a rough week, but we're looking out for our team as best as possible and cannot wait to not be affected, as you all cannot wait to not be affected by this COVID-19 situation and get back to doing what we love. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to me after. I'm happy to talk about that. But right now, the focus of this is on you all and what you all are experiencing in your different organizations and in your different work practices. So we have Vivian from the Northwest Film Forum in Seattle, Todd from BendFilm, and Chelsea from FilmFort, TreeFort, and many of you may know them and may know what their work is. But starting with Vivian, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of a heads up on who you are, what you're doing, and really what you're doing in this moment where we're 5 weeks into this new not so normal.
Hey everyone, my name is Vivian Hua. I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Film Forum. I'm also a filmmaker. Well, what is happening? What we're doing mostly right now is moving a lot of our festivals into an online format and really using a combination of things such as the first run distributor programs and films which are available through distributors. And then really kind of playing up our curated content, because we do so many festivals that are highly curated. And I think in this time, you know, a lot of film centers are doing sort of the same thing. But having really curated programs really sets you apart right now. So I think that's kind of been our focus. More later.
Great, thank you. And Todd, what have you been up to?
Quite a bit. We've been really busy pivoting programming to online stuff and expanding kind of our normal programming, as well as doing all the steps everyone else is to make sure that we're staying in business. But so BendFilm, we run a festival every October. So 4-day independent film festival. I've been doing that for 16 years. This will be the 17th one. So we are scheduled for October 8th through 11th, and fully at this point planning on forging ahead with that. We're keeping a close eye on everything, but we'll know probably by July what structure the festival will take. We're definitely going to have some virtual option for the festival because we already have that capability. So we might as well use it for the festival, but we want to be live in whatever capacity we're allowed to do so, and however we can ensure that we're keeping everybody safe and not stressing out any healthcare workers or making some of the most vulnerable people more vulnerable. So that's the plan for the festival. We also run a daily operating cinema, the Tin Pan Theater here in Bend. And I should back up. So with BendFilm, we've also, very quickly just started contacting filmmakers to see if, if they would perhaps, a few days after everything shut down, watch parties and things started happening. And we started contacting filmmakers to see if they would want to host, say, a screening of their film and a conversation, or, do some other engagement with our audience around films. And then that quickly morphed into something we're doing Tuesdays and Thursdays at the happy hour at 4:00 to host filmmakers for an hour, just live Facebook via Zoom chat, and we call it BendFilmmakers. So every day we'll have every Tuesday or Thursday have kind of a special filmmaker or let's say a theme or something to talk about. So we had filmmakers, directors that have been alum, like Portland Sky Fitzgerald was on last week. But we'll also have, people who are screenwriters, and hopefully we're going to have a composer on and things like that. So kind of really open it up to all different facets of filmmaking. And it's so far getting a lot of good engagement. I think at this time where people are looking for more of the content, it's people are tuning in, so it's cool. And hopefully when things go back to somewhat normal, we'll retain some of that interest. So that's on the BendFilm front. And then going to the Tin Pan, our daily operating cinema, we actually there is one more thing that we started too with BendFilm is we've been working with our ticketing company who we've used for the last 4 years, a really great company called Inventive, and we're going to put a library of all of our all of our alumni films from the festival for the past 3 years. And we're going to put them online because they quickly pivoted to having a virtual festival. They used to just do tickets, but in about a week or so, they pivoted to add basically a virtual festival platform onto their ticketing site. So it's awesome. So we have all of these customers that have used this ticketing system for the past 4 years, and now they're going to be introduced to this platform. And what we're going to do is invite all of our alumni filmmakers to post their films on there. And, it's going to be behind a paywall so we could charge for those. And we're going to split the revenues that we make with filmmakers. We're also going to make those films available for our members for free. And we're still going to split any view, even if it's free, with filmmakers. So they're going to get less money per view because we're not going to get anything for those views specifically, but they're at least going to get something. So hopefully that will roll out really soon. Right now we're busy collecting links and getting it up and running and looking decent so that we can go public with it. So then for the Tin Pan, we, Kino now seems like a year ago, but Kino, was pretty much the first one to start building their own virtual cinemas, and they had the wonderful idea of giving each cinema a different URL, so you could have a virtual cinema of your own cinema. So we had the virtual tin pan at Kino, and they released Bakura, a big film for them last year, on it. So right now we have something like 8 titles running on our virtual tin pan theater, which is really nice. And the other thing about Inventive is they now have relationships with Sony Pictures Classics, Strand Releasing, so that those companies will put their movies directly on our site, so that then, people that are already our customers don't have to get new, sign up for new services and stuff, because we're hosting stuff by Vimeo, Magnolia, Music Box, and Vimeo. So if our customers want to see any of those movies, they got to create an account with each of those hosting services. And hopefully we can get more stuff directly on our site, the Inventive site, so that we can more easily see, or people can more easily watch these movies. And since member benefits come with free screenings at the Tin Pan, members will also be able to see those movies for free, for their limited, say, 6 tickets that they get for their membership. So that's kind of all the stuff we've been doing. And, people are excited about it, that are fans. At this point, it's really slow going to get up and running, but, it's showing a lot of promise, and I think it's pretty exciting, that we're able to do this, and then hopefully we can at least open up in some capacity in June to get back to somewhat normal. But, these things that we're doing will hopefully can, branch out and do things we wanted to do anyway, and will still seem relevant in the post-quarantine phase of all this.
Todd, before we go on to Chelsea, Jen Tate is curious about the numbers. And I think that this is obviously something that is a slow burn. And I think that we're competing with everything that's ever come out on any kind of media since the history of time. So it's a pretty unique situation. I just read a new report that people are streaming media, and that's podcasts, films, television series, weird things on their phone, over 8 hours a day right now in major cities throughout the US. So are you at liberty to kind of talk about how many people have been showing up for these kinds of screenings?
So I just got to, it's funny because, we have to get our box office reports to distributors on Mondays and Fridays, I think, and they get all bent out of shape. Mm-hmm. And now that the roles are reversed, they're a little slow on their reporting.
Yes, well.
We'll give them a long leash, because I understand what they're up against. I don't have numbers of views for a lot of these, and I will say, that one title I know is most likely doing well, or probably the best out of any of ours, is Fantastic Fungi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You go Fungi, right? Yeah, I should do Fungi. Yeah, you always get tripped up. We don't have, apparently they're not going to give numbers until it's all over, until we stop running it, which I don't know if we ever will. So.
that might keep us all in business. So
I know. Well, I mean, most art houses that ran that movie would still be running it if they could, and they've been doing that for months, and I'm sure we would have done the same thing. So, we're going to do that virtually. Okay. So nonetheless, it's very slow going. One thing that we did is, the first $500 we were going to make from this and our share, we partner with a nonprofit every year that does direct service, and this year we're partnering with a medical service provider who's going to use. So we're going to do the first 500 to them, and they're going to buy it to stock up on their PPE stuff. So. And have been doing this for 3 weeks. I think we're just there to make 500. So
thank you for being so candid and honest on that, because obviously that affects some of the folks that are in the nonprofit sector, but it also is a good gut check for filmmakers that, as we're looking at where your work can go, whether it's festivals, whether it's streaming, whether it's alternative platforms, that right in this kind of these early days, it's slow going financially, and everybody's best heart and best foot's forward, but it's early days. So thank you so much, Todd. Chelsea, what are you seeing with what you're doing, and share with us a little bit, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I work with TreeFort Music Festival, which is a music festival in Boise, Idaho, that has a ton of auxiliary events. For those who aren't familiar, there's different forts. And so I'm the director of FilmFort, and we are kind of a sister film festival to Eastern Oregon Film Festival. We're a small team that's kind of within a much larger event. So that kind of is a little bit different than a standalone event. I think we've had some unique challenges and also opportunities because of that. So we canceled or postponed TreeFort on March 11th. So that was about 2 weeks before the event. So we were kind of in that same boat as South by when they came out and canceled. We thought, uh-oh, that's not good for us, because we're only 2 weeks after South by, and maybe this is bigger than we thought. Out here in Idaho, we're pretty isolated, honestly, so we've been a couple weeks behind the curve that a lot of people have in terms of our numbers and our transmission and people adopting quarantine and stuff. So I would say, and I'd be interested to hear from Utah too, like what it's like in Central Oregon, but I know out here, there's kind of been a sense of like, well, no one's out here, it's fine, but the truth is, TreeFort brings 5,000 people or more into the city, and we knew that was, pretty dangerous with everything that's going on. So within about a week, the TreeFort leadership team was able to come out and give new dates, offer refunds to anybody who needed it, and come up with a new confirmed lineup. And I think those things really helped us kind of move the ball down the court and saying, we're still going to do this. It's going to be September, and make all your arrangements now. So we had a really high kind of commitment rate from our sponsors, from our ticket holders, from our artists, to continue the event as intended in September. So we've got a little bit of virtual programming that we're looking at. TreeFort did some music streaming events during the week that would have been TreeFort on YouTube, and we're probably going to do the same thing with a couple of FilmFort screenings this summer. But our goal is more to kind of maintain engagement during this kind of slump, since we were really ramping up with our marketing and everything as we were preparing to launch the festival. Obviously, that adds 6 months or 5 month lead time into our marketing, and we have to create more content and delivery and keep people engaged. So that's more our goal, rather than delivering the festival in a different format as a whole. At TreeFort, we kind of had a discussion about like, what are our goals as a festival, and what do we want to achieve, and what are we going to achieve with virtual programming? For us, one of our big goals is not only supporting filmmakers, but bringing top tier artists to Boise, and sharing what Boise has to offer with them, and sharing what they have to offer with Boise. So that is so critical to the programming that we deliver and the experience that we deliver at TreeFort. We just really didn't feel that we could deliver a fraction of that online. And to be honest, just the capacity, staff capacity, when we had all done 90% of our job up until, a couple weeks before the festival, it was really hard to just kind of pivot to put it all online. So we're kind of rolling out some content here and there to keep folks engaged, but we've had a really good response from our fan base and our sponsors, which is great. We don't have many grants, so we didn't have to really answer to funders that way. And so one of the things we've been kind of doing is looking at how each fort can contribute to support artist relief. So right now we're looking at artist relief funds, or how we can pivot some of the merchandising and some of the things we were going to do at the festival, and pivot some of that so that we can do it a little bit earlier and maybe raise some funds, additional funds for artists in our community, or support artists who had to change their plans to come to the festival later in fall. So that's kind of where we've been landing with a lot of things. Yeah, we offered full refunds, and we only had a 10% loss in ticket holders for across the entire festival. And that, you know, we have plenty of time to make that up. So I think we felt pretty positive about that. And we were able to maintain 90% of our artists. Of course, as a film festival, we could still show those films whether or not the filmmakers come, but we want to obviously have as many filmmakers come as possible. So some of that is still kind of to be determined, but it really depends now, right, on what it's going to look like for public gatherings and everything moving forward. And we realize that if there's limitations on that continually this fall, then we'll have to really look at how are we going to deliver the experience of the festival, because I don't think any of us are willing to just throw in the towel at this point. So there's still the possibility of adapting to more virtual environments if necessary. Oh, I think you're muted. Oh, I think you're muted, Amy.
Oh no, okay. I was doing my Annie Hall thing. I'm sorry. No, I was saying Jen Tate must be still on coffee and not onto alcohol, because she keeps bringing it with the great questions. So she would like to hear more about what platforms you all are using, if people are up for sharing that, so that we can keep track. Because I think that, you know, one of the things that both Tim and I heard right on the kind of NEA call is that Sundance NEA and a bunch of folks are really trying to get a handle on what film festivals need right now, what filmmakers need right now, what new media artists need right now. And it's just, I don't know whether I speak for all of us, but it is just so overwhelming. And one of the things was, you know, what are not just what best practices are and how we share maybe on Art House Convergence or other things with each other or in different groups, but just what are people trying and failing or trying and finding are great. I think it would be really helpful to hear that. And maybe we could hear from you, Viv, first. I know you just did a design festival. I don't know how you configured that and how that worked, but maybe as we just frame the conversation, we can hear about it. If we can hear how many people attended and what you thought of the platform itself, both its positives and its negatives in this moment.
Sure. So we also have another festival going on this weekend. It's a video poetry festival, and it's our like 4th year of doing that. So we basically had 3 days between closure and moving our By Design and Architecture Film Festival online. So we went with Vimeo and did like a Vimeo live stream account, and basically our programs are divided up in a bunch of different ways. So we have the films that go through distributors, similar to what Ben is doing, and then we have our festivals, which are behind basically like password protected playlists on Vimeo that we give ticket holders access to if they purchase a ticket, essentially. And then in addition to that, we have certain programs that so everything is donation based, $0 to $25. Because we realize that at this time a lot of our constituency doesn't have money, but at the same time a lot of people do still have jobs and still want to contribute, so just giving people that option is kind of like a community service we're doing at this time. But yeah, so those are behind password protected playlists, and then we have live streamed events that are, you can RSVP beforehand, but we'll also push them out via Facebook live stream and do watch parties and stuff, so they're just open to the public. Great.
I know there's been some good chat traffic here, that there's Film Fest Flicks, there is Inventive, which we talked about, Festival Scope, Steed and Spark. Yeah, I think everyone agrees that festivals are not going to continue as normal. I think it was in the last 30 minutes, or maybe it was just in my last 30 minutes, that even Cannes and Venice, who are arch rivals in the kind of truest West Side Story sense, are thinking about how they're going to come together for a super festival in the fall. So if those two can put aside their differences and figure out a new way forward, by God, all of us in a martini can figure this out together too. Chelsea, did you go ahead, please, Viv?
I mention something. Yeah, I wanted to mention that actually profit and attendance wise, both our By Design Architecture Festival and our Poetry Festival are doing better than they did in the previous years. Primarily because even though there's like a similar number of attendees, more people are willing to purchase festival passes at this time, even though the screenings are optional payment. For some reason, like if they're willing to throw down to watch a festival, they will buy the entire festival pass. So that's been a really interesting observation.
That's terrific to hear. And I guess for all three of you, and then we can go to some of the filmmakers on the call and kind of shift gears to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. How are you and who are you promoting what you're doing right now? Because I think that there's a kind of argument just to go to the folks that are already on your team. They're your members, they're on your boards, they're kind of an active part of your community. And then there's the kind of counter to that of you have an opportunity with virtual programming to kind of go beyond the normal and kind of go into spaces and places, into people and communities that you might not otherwise have the bandwidth or the resources or other things to be able to tackle. So I would be very curious how you all are spreading the word about what you're doing and to whom.
I'll just throw in a couple little comments there. That is one of the benefits of this virtual programming, is that, you know, as I'm setting up a couple of these for summer, I'm really focusing on the films that I know I wasn't going to have filmmakers for in fall because of their work schedule, or because of where they live, or, you know, various considerations, people that I already knew wouldn't be able to attend in September. And that's my way of, you know, again, trying to keep that filmmaker attendance high in fall and be able to provide some added value for people in the meantime with filmmakers I was really wanted to speak with. So that is kind of exciting. I mean, you know, as far as reaching new audiences, honestly, we're using the same marketing channels that we always were. We have our digital newsletter, we have our social media channels, and, you know, we communicate a lot with the press. So I don't know that our messaging has changed or how we're communicating it. But I think just trying to stay in the conversation is kind of the most that we're doing right now.
We're getting quite a bit of traction with national and international audiences, just because we're doing these highly curated festivals with international short films. And it is a lot of like filmmaker word of mouth, and just, yeah, social media has been really something we've been focusing more and more on, and just naturally has had its own snowballing effect even when we're not paying attention to it. So I would definitely recommend investment in that arena.
Great. And Todd?
Was the question about platforms?
The question was about how you're promoting what you're doing and to whom.
Yeah, good question. We've kept on our social media PR person, so we're doing a lot on social these days, and the engagement's been crazy high. You know, I'm pretty much only on Facebook, and I'm looking at the numbers here, and they're really good. So we know people are more or less on them, probably more than they are on average, and it seems to be getting out there. I mean, we don't over news. You know, we'll do one a week for the Tin Pan to announce new releases in any sort of news, and we'll do a bi-weekly one for BendFilm. You know, typically BendFilm would have more news than just what's going on at the Tin Pan, but we're, you know, now that really only the programming that we're doing weekly is just Tin Pan virtual screenings. We're sort of using that space for Tin Pan news, and then, you know, we may release some bigger BendFilm initiative, or, you know, that Ben Filmmakers series. So yeah, we don't do too much on e-news. And then I just started doing direct emails to people we know that come to a lot of our stuff, to just reach out, see how they're doing, and then, you know, kind of promoting this stuff on just emails. But yeah, that's about it. But we're getting a decent amount of press coverage down here as well, because you know, streaming's the big news story. So we're getting more calls from local TV stations and stuff to, you know, as sort of the resident experts on film, hey, what's great to stream? And, that always allows us then to plug what we're doing.
Well, that's great. I think
Yeah.
that, it's funny that, we've spent the first half of this call really talking about, some of the new innovative things that you all are doing as festivals, as theaters, as nonprofits. But I think almost everything that you've said is applicable to makers on the call as well. It's almost the same in some ways, while one is from a business mind, the other's from a creative mind. It's all from a business and creative mind, really. And I think that spirit of innovation and that spirit of togetherness is kind of this next phase, this phase 2 that we're going into. And I'd be curious, Tim can comment on this as well. We had a call with nonprofits all over the country, as well as the Sundance Institute and the NEA. And, what they were really trying to figure out, which I think all of us are trying to figure out, is, sales and streaming information, how to make a film and launch a film in this particular climate, how to get real-time information if you're going to go into a virtual or online space. I know that there are some festivals that have contracts that filmmakers are to sign, and those are new contracts from what used to be that considered the norm. So I'd be really interested to hear from some of the artists and the filmmakers and producers and content creators on this call about what they're grappling with in real time and what they're hearing. And Tim, if you also had anything to add to that, I know that Sundance also just announced today that they are doing $1 million artists grant. And 1/3 of that grant will go to their previous lab fellows and grantees, but the other 2/3, it is definitely for artists all over the United States. So I would definitely take a look at that. Tim, was there anything else that you wanted to add before folks start to jump in about what they're grappling with in this moment?
No. I would say on two things. First thing, Anna Nicholas actually asked something about the Deadline article about production. Just Anna, we're talking about how do we come back and what do we do for production almost every hour of every day. And I'm talking about to it at the state level. I've been talking to the unions and the guilds, and a lot of this is going to happen at, whereas the governor, what she's saying about stay at home, then it's going to be how the unions are dealing with it. And then it's going to be how 2- and 3-person shoots are dealing with it. And I think it's going to be a phase thing. It's going to be an overtime thing, and it's going to have a lot of different pieces to it. The 2 biggest pieces that are going to be the hardest to figure out are testing and tracing. And I think those are the 2 things everybody agrees has to be in place in order for something to go back to even what normal might be. And as everybody knows, testing is not easy to get to right now. So that's probably a separate conversation. But on this conversation, I was interested, Amy, to your point, listening to Richard Herskovich from Ashland on our earlier call, this idea that, for a long time, film festivals were this thing, and we all knew they were this thing, we all did it. And then suddenly streaming started totally morphing film festivals, like what's a premiere and what's not, and what does a theater do? And now we're in a whole different world where, sales agents and filmmakers are now dealing with, well, how do I geo block, and how do I, it's a whole new thing. And I think the sales industry, like many industries, is just always slow to react to anything. So if you have a film that needs to go to a festival that has a sales agent attached, I'm sure you're getting advice that's probably 3 years old that's not actually up to date with what's going on with right now with what festivals are trying to deal with. So I think that's a really interesting sort of area to be in, is what are people feeling about film festivals that are virtual, and what kind of rights and what kind of things are they feeling comfortable with in that arena, because it's totally different right now.
Feel free to either jump in or type in your questions. I'll share that I have a film that was supposed to premiere in competition in Tribeca last night as a producer, and we're navigating those waters right now. Do we put it available to press? Do we put it available to industry? Do we stay in competition? Because that might negate our chances down the line. And I'm happy to share kind of our choices with anybody that's curious, either during or after this call. But does anyone else, have work out there that they're thinking about either for now or for the fall, or even for starting in January of next year?
Hi, this is Ashley. It's so weird. Sorry, my video is not working. So, but yeah, I'm in the shorts world. Haven't done features, but I have a couple shorts right now that have been waiting to go into festivals, and one specifically that has been a big question about, what do I do now? Because it was going to have its premiere in New York. And, now do you wait? Do you just decide? I'm really debating and very seriously considering just having an online release, and just maybe this is the perfect time to do that, especially for shorts, because people want content, and I bet I get a ton of eyeballs on it now that I wouldn't get on it once the festivals start back up in person. So it's definitely a question that I'm milling around, and I have friends who are going through the same thing with their features even. And I love this question. I don't know if anyone has the answer, but I would certainly be open to hearing what others are doing or considering, and the whys. What are the true pro cons of both, and how to weigh those decisions.
Super, super great. Thanks for sharing, Ashley. I think one of the things that I'll share that we're doing is that it's always tough to go above the crowd, even at a festival in a traditional sense. How do you stand out? And then making that decision, like you said, is it eyeballs, love, or money? Really pick one. You're lucky if you get two. You ain't getting three, right? So one of the things we've been doing is the person that is the director and star of the film that we're in is pretty charming. And so he is making like individualized kind of Zoom-like videos, very short and sweet, but like as we send it to buyers or as we send it to press, there's like a little kind of almost video of who he is and why he's just so damned excited to share this film with him. And the response has been fantastic. And I think that works for certain people, but I think that, what my takeaway that really struck me was, it's super lo-fi, but super high impact. And it still does the thing that festivals used to do, which is connectivity. And he does his homework and kind of sees like, oh, film critic, you grew up in Alabama too. Well, howdy. And then goes into his kind of regular thing before sending it. So I think that's something that I've been seeing that definitely worked. I've been seeing some stuff that definitely doesn't, which is business as usual, kind of sending it out blanket and hoping for the best. I think business as usual is at a bit of a standstill right now. What other things are you all doing or hearing that can support Ashley and others on this call?
Thanks, Amy.
I'll jump in. This is Tara. I'm in Portland, and I'm a director producer, and I have a feature film, My Summer as a Goth, that did the festival circuit last year. And thankfully, we were able to sign a distribution deal in February. So prior to kind of everything going upside down with the industry. And I'm with a smaller distribution company, but we were going to go theatrical in May. And obviously we're not able to do that anymore. So having to rethink everything, and we're going to go digital. And I'll have an update in a couple of weeks of what that's going to look like, as far as which platforms and how we're going to roll that out. As a purist, I was a little bit sad to let go that theatrical experience, but I was fortunate to have a really robust festival run. So at least I got some of that experience with the film and with the cast to be able to be in front of an audience. So it's interesting to navigate this, because I feel like there's certainly an opportunity for independent films that are in similar position as me, because we have this captive audience to be able to promote to, and people are seeking out new content. So I'm trying to look at the silver lining of what we can do here to not only get the film in front of people, but also the attention to the actors that are, entering the next level in their career paths, and myself as a filmmaker, and what that can do for future projects and what that would look like. Current things that I've been working on certainly have had to be pushed back, which is unfortunate. And, but also like being able to take time and to really be thoughtful about the kinds of projects that I want to be involved in moving forward, and how to be really diligent about putting those together as a producer, and to think about what will be coming down as sort of mandates in terms of like how we can create media and be in production on films as we roll into being closer as a community. I think it's really interesting and fascinating. I read that article on Deadline just to think about how we're going to make this happen, how, you know, in terms of the filmmaking process. Smaller crews might be able to go back sooner, but like the larger Hollywood studio back stuff, I think it's going to be really challenging, and just all the different things that will have to happen in terms of making it possible and safe for everyone. So
thanks so much, Tara. That was really helpful.
I could share a little bit about what we did with the release of Phoenix, Oregon, and our streaming platform. Can you guys see my video?
Yes.
You can see me. Okay. So I think I shared a little bit about this before, but I can give some numbers. I'm totally happy to be really transparent with what we've been doing. We were supposed to be in theaters on March 20th. And we had 17 theaters that we've been working with, and then we were going to add theaters after that until our digital release in June. So right around March 10th, we realized that wasn't going to be happening, so we pivoted, and we put together our own streaming platform called Theatrical at Home. We looked at Vimeo, but because the Vimeo didn't have the sales transparency that we wanted, we decided to do our own. So it's not necessarily like a scalable solution at the moment, but it's been working really good. We built it, I used Shopify for our payment processor because we could put affiliate marketing on top of that. So we've just added an affiliate portal, so all of our theaters can have real-time sales reporting and access to all their customer data at any time they want. So we just put that in this week. And then we're using JW Player right now, which has really great bandwidth. The main issues that the customers have been having is that if they don't have good streaming capabilities and good Wi-Fi, then they have a little bit trouble connecting to their television. And Roku users can't use it, and then there's a couple Samsung users that can't. But most people, like 95% of the people, have no problem streaming from their desktop to their television. So that's been pretty positive. So our numbers, we've given back over 10,000 to festivals and theaters at this point. So we've had about $25,000 in revenue, and we set our price point really low because we wanted to be sensitive to the market out there. So we set it at a matinee price of $650, and we split all our revenues with our partners. And we're going to continue doing this. We have 60 venues on our platform right now. Half of those are going to drop off this week because we did a big event with the festivals last weekend, and that was really successful. And we did a virtual Q&A with them through Zoom. So Leela put that together. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm happy to answer more questions about that. We are going to try to scale it. We're going to be adding some more films next month.
I'm so impressed with the innovation. I think everybody is. And I think, you know, it gives everybody hope that there is a way through this. And I think, you know, thank you for sharing. I've been reading and following online, but it's a lot better to hear it directly from you. So thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think to that extent, you know, I'm brand new here. Many of you have been living here for quite some time, but what's really struck me is how incredible this creative community here in the Northwest is. And one of the other things that Tim and Wyden and Kennedy and a bunch of different folks in a bunch of different forums have been talking about is not only how to take care of each other in forums like this, but how to make sure that we're part of a national conversation with our peers and with our colleagues that are also in this space and really come out of, you know, this stronger, working together. Obviously, that's kind of the buzzword of the moment, but really also figuring out a way to let folks know that there's a lot of incredible talent that's here in the Northwest. And I think that that's something that I would be really excited to also hear your thoughts about in two ways. One, if you have ideas about how that might look and feel. And the other would be, you know, we plan to do these Zoom happy hours indefinitely for the next few months until we kind of rise out of this collectively. So if there are people or topics that you all would like to engage with, this is your forum. Northwest Film Center is just hosting it with the Oregon Film. So I think that that would be something that would be great to talk about as well. There are 43 non-shy people on this call, y'all. I know it's almost 5 and it's 75 degrees. I can't believe you're here and not outside, but we appreciate you and want to hear your feedback.
I just got a comment. I just wanted to see if Mark from PSU wanted to talk about, he was just saying that there is some need for potential work with their students because they're all online. Mark, I don't know if you want to talk
Sure.
about that.
I was cutting and pasting my message to Amy, but if you want me to talk, I'll talk.
Yeah, please do.
So thanks. So hi, everybody. I'm Mark Berrettini. I'm the director of the School of Film at Portland State. And we are all remote at the moment. So we are actually able to keep all of our classes going for spring term, which was good. But we also are going to be all remote for all of summer session from the end of June through late August, which will be interesting. And we have a couple people who are doing internships. Some people who are at least on the last call I know have interns. So my pitch was simply for us and all education institutions, our students are looking for internships still. And if anybody has any creative needs or opportunities that you could use a remote intern, that would be great. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens as productions start to ramp up again in the summer, and yet we're still remote. How we haven't crossed that bridge yet, but hopefully the university will be flexible with us in terms of what they understand that to mean for interns. But anyway, if anybody has any ideas, feel free to contact me. You can find our information, Portland State Film. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. And we will definitely talk more about that. And I think that there's others that can perhaps chime in as well, because the bottom line is a lot of companies, whether it's animation companies, whether it's branded content and advertising, whether it's folks that maybe are prepping for a film, a television series, as these things ramp up, are going to need help. And they're probably going to need help locally more than ever in Seattle and Idaho, here in Portland, and even in San Francisco. So I think it's just a small bit of hope that whereas talent had been recruited from the outside and brought into our communities, and that's always still welcome, and that's just part of interesting creativity. I think for the immediate, as things ramp up, there will be more and more kind of local opportunities for talent to shine. So thank you for that. I've gotten a couple of different things that I'll just read out loud for folks. Somebody has suggested something on distribution, something about navigating of artist support resources, and also somebody that kind of here to the sales and streaming info share. If anybody else wants to chime in, that would be fantastic.
Hey, Amy, it's Ashley again.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. I'm chatty today, apparently.
I like it. So am I. So.
So something that's been going on in my head lately, ever since we started the media huddles back a few months ago, is how we can bring the filmmakers, because being a filmmaker, how can we bring these filmmakers from maybe starting in Portland, maybe it's all of Oregon, maybe it's the Pacific Northwest. I just wanted to kind of throw something against the wall and see if people have thoughts about it, because I think it's a really interesting idea. I just don't know exactly how to do it or in which ways it could truly benefit. I can see a few ideas, but the idea is, how can we bring us all together on a virtual platform for our content? So whether it's, any short or web series or feature, where, let's just go with Portland for now, Portland filmmakers are all housed there. And you can choose whether you're going to give it for free, have a rental fee, or maybe there's a membership that goes along with it. I was curious if anyone's been thinking about that, or if that's ever been tried, and what we might be able to do with that idea, if anything, that could really be supportive to all of us. As a lot of us here, at least the ones that I know, I'm part of Film Fade Tells and Women in Film, a lot of us aren't getting big distribution deals or anything, but we still want our content to be available and to be watched. And some people are happy doing that for free, and others want maybe just a little bit of, cash to come from it. But so I'm just trying to think of how we could use this opportunity that we all have, that we're all virtual, to come together, maybe starting virtually, that then when we come back in person, we have this really tight knit group of people that we can then maybe do more tactile and in-person type of things. And I know there's a lot of us filmmakers who are asking for the community of filmmakers to really come together in a more, not just a supportive way, but in a way that we can actually build deeper relationships with one another. So I'm going to throw that out, and I'd love to hear if anyone has immediate thoughts, responses, reactions to it. Thanks.
I'll jump in too. I think that's a really good idea. If and maybe Film Fatales is the entity to do this. But if someone wants to act as like the administrator of an effort like this, all you really need to do is talk to Eventive, the system that I'm currently using for the virtual festival. And I put a couple links to what we're doing in their general page if anyone else wants to look more into it and contact them. But that platform would achieve everything you want to do. And it's a really good idea that I may even use that to, or like you're welcome to, if Leah on Film Fatales, for her to set up like a Film Fatales library, essentially, kind of like what we're doing with our alumni films, that the Film Fatales has a library of all Film Fatales films, and people can offer them for free or put it behind a paywall or whatever, and share the revenue with the filmmakers. So I mean, it's a really good idea for filmmakers then, to use that platform to take ownership over their own films and their own distribution.
And I think a longer term play for that would be, again, something around the talent that lives in each of these communities, even just in these communities that are on here. So, one of the things that Tim and I have been talking about with some others is even just a kind of more global campaign, something like Creativity Lives Here, and then having clips from each of, from a number of people, like an omnibus, short trailer, that you're seeing the kind of style and the creative breadth of Oregon. You're seeing the style and the creative breadth of Washington, and even Idaho, California. There's so many things that make us who we are and make us unique. And I think at this time there's a real argument to be made. I think that it's something that each of us are maybe looking at through our own lenses, but it also might be something that we could bring together. I know Viv just said that she's got a streaming hub. It sounds like Todd's got one. It sounds like we've got one, right? So like we're all down the trail, but I think if we can help filmmakers collectively, that could be another goal for this group, and we'll continue to open the doors wider for that. I will share that I'm also talking to San Francisco Film Society, and they may seem worlds away, 8-hour drive, but they're grappling with a lot of the same things that we are. So
I'll chime in a little bit. So for those of us who are developing new content, we had a film that we were going to shoot in May, which obviously we're not going to shoot. So I decided to go back and work on the script. But the Portland chapter of the International Screenwriters Association, ISA, which Northwest Film used to host the third Thursdays and will host on third Thursdays when we come back. We're doing it's a way for screenwriters to get together and kick their butts and do some writing together. So on Tuesdays at 9 in the morning, a bunch of screenwriters are hooking up on Zoom and checking in, and then writing for 45 minutes, checking back in, and then writing for 45 minutes. And I'll post the link right here.
Great. Thank you, David.
Yep.
And I can't believe it's a palindrome. It's 4:54 already. And if anyone had any final thoughts, please feel free to share, or we can definitely just say a huge thank you to Todd and Viv and Chelsea for joining us, to Tim for being always there. We appreciate you. And for all of you, again, I can't, only in the Northwest, I'll tell you, as a recovering New Yorker, nobody in New York would have joined this thing on a 75-degree day, let alone, at 5 o'clock. So I think it's a real testament to this community and to how much that you guys care for one another. And it's very inspiring. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And, this is a weekly call, but you can reach out to any of us that are a part of the Northwest Film Center, any of us that you've met here on this call, and continue the conversation. We strongly recommend that. And, again, we're going to need each other. So if you have ideas about people or topics, keep them coming, because we're a vessel for you guys, and we want to make sure that we're serving you in the best way possible.
Hey, Amy, can I make a quick plug for on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, we're doing something similar with filmmakers, with OMPA, and I believe, Tim, you're going to be there with Oregon Film Office, just to basically have a filmmaker sort of mixer networking event. And I put that information in an earlier comment, and I'll redo it, but apparently that's open to everyone. So take a look, and hope you can join us as well.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Amy.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is great.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you next week, everybody, if not before, and go enjoy the sunshine, please.
Thanks all.
Stay
Take care.
healthy.
Thank you. Have a
Bye.
great day.
Wear masks.